this video, we're going to go through the world's most powerful smart money buy and sell levels on Bitcoin. We'll then look at how total crypto market cap is holding up. Then we'll move to the structural levels on SUI. This is a community requested chart and quite a favorite of our community. Then we'll look into the structural levels on Solana. Having Solana structural levels is an absolute game changer. These price waves are waving up and down because of support and resistance, but not any type of support and resistance, structural support and resistance. And then we'll check out the structural levels on ADA, Cardano. We'll also check out the levels of structure on BNB, as well as checking into the structure on Doge. And we'll cover off how the main markets are moving. Let's run the numbers. Hi everyone, I'm Ken from CryptoTradingKS and the CTKS method. If you're new, a very warm welcome, and welcome back CTKS family. There were so many fantastic comments in yesterday's video. Please make sure that if you haven't already, you let me know your 3 favorite projects. They can be from crypto, they can be from Forex, they can be from the stock market, they can be major market indexes, whatever suits your fancy. Just your top 3. I'll see what I can do for you, like I've been working on SUI all day. It does take a bit of time to mark up charts with level 1 and level 2 standard certification, but it's absolutely worthwhile if you want X-ray vision. And you want to know where smart money is going to come in and sell price down and where it's going to buy it up. And if you like making money inside financial markets, please smash that like button. Okay, let's have a look at the main markets. We can see the S&P 500 in the past trading session. It went up, down, all around and has been declining. That set off a decline as well in risk-off asset classes, of which Bitcoin is the number 1. It's number 1 risk-off, number 1 risk-on. It is the alpha among all alphas. So as we see the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, the Russell and the Dow retracing, that's put negative momentum inside the crypto market. So if people are saying to you, what's caused crypto to go down? Major market indexes. You get all the news from the charts in real time. And if we look at the Nikkei has been coming down. There's talk that the Bank of Japan is going to increase interest rates to fight inflation. And you can see, even if you are in the Aussie market, the Australian market, just trading Aussie shares, look at the signal that Bitcoin gives you. It is just incredible. But Bitcoin is structurally bound. Let's check it out. Every single candlestick chart has structure, but what typically happens, people just put in random structure and they say, oh, that's obviously resistance. Well, could you have known that that was resistance before price hit it? And was the actual resistance up here? Was it up higher? Was it down lower? Is it only one level of, say, resistance when price comes up, or are there multiple levels of resistance? And how strong are they? Are they weak? Are they strong? And what about support? Is the support down here or down here? And if price was just at this point, how would we know support is there and there? In other words, how do we get ahead of the market and see what smart money sees? Smart money is not retail. Smart money doesn't guess. Now, why don't they guess? They're literally putting millions and millions and millions of dollars in. They can't afford to guess. Let's have a look at the structure on Bitcoin. And you can get the indicator I'm popping on from ctksmethod.org. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, indicator on. Now what do we see here? The structural overhead resistance was around that 110, 160 level. So as price came through this positive CTKS gap, it initially struck resistance at the 109,927 mark and then came up to challenge the 110. Now, because there was quite a bit of overhead structural resistance in these areas, price said, oh brother, there's so many sellers up here, and it did a structural fail, and it got pushed down to the next level of structural support, which was around that 108,923 mark. And we see it ping pong back and forward. You can make a lot of money in these gaps. One thing that we know as a global family, you don't have to make big percentages to make big percentages. And look at this structural support level just playing in literally around where price is right now. That's the 108,929 mark. Where is structural support underneath that? It's 108,366, but that is a little bit light. This is quite strong. Has this flipped into support yet? No, it's too early. And what are these lines actually called? They're called SLs or Stanfield levels. They're also called CTKS levels. Look at how price was bounding between this structural support when it came down, flicked up to structural resistance, said, oh brother, I am out of here. Did a structural overshoot and got caught on that lower structural support level. If you don't think knowing the exact structure is a good idea, ay caramba. Typically, what people do when price prints something new, they change all their structural levels around because they're not actually structure. Structure is literally level 1 and level 2 standard certification. Now, when we look at this, where could Bitcoin go? If it fails here at that 108,900 mark, we could come down to the 108,400. If we manage to pass through it, 110,200 gets in our sights. And if you would like the wider structure above this price and below this price, you can get the Bitcoin indicator from ctksmethod.org. And if you're liking the content, please smash that like button. And don't forget to subscribe. Let's have a look at the structural levels on total crypto market cap. Currently, the crypto market is $3.38 trillion. Austin Powers would be proud, especially Dr. Evil. Now, why on earth do we look at total crypto market cap? What has this got to do with anything? For example, if you were trading or investing in SUI, what do you care if the entire crypto market comes down like this, or rages up like this, or comes down like this, or rages up like this? You get the idea. Why do you care that it moves in a wave? Well, this is the entirety of the crypto market, of which SUI and all of the other alts are a part. Now, what does that mean? It's a fairly good question. I'm glad you asked it. Let's just throw on the indicator and see what is cooking. We can see that this level through here, this level, this is all structural overhead resistance. If you looked at your SUI chart, you would want to figure out where these levels are. Why is that? Because if we manage to get across all of this resistance and come back up to this level, we're going to get challenged. And that challenge is literally lots and lots of sellers coming in to see if they can push down price. Now, what about this level? This is a little bit easier to understand. This structural support area just at that bottom is very, very important. Look at how it just pinged price up and down until we got that structural overshoot, and then it flung itself to the next ceiling. At least you know where the ceilings are. We're not making this stuff up as we go. These particular levels get fixed at the start of the month and they stay static for the month. Also, the way you interpret a Stanfield level or SL is you look towards the right. So price is doing this at the moment. If it falls, it will get supported, potentially structurally overshoot and get elasticized, or it could turn around and do this. So you know your ceiling, you know your floor in advance. For example, just say we were back here, price rallied up, and you didn't know where this was. You would just naturally think it's going to keep going and going and going. But what about this structural resistance line? Notice how it's curving over like this. This is not by mistake. This rate of ascent is getting decreased because the sellers are starting to push the price down. The sellers want it to go down because they want to buy it lower. Where? Where lower? Of course, structural support lower, and we know where that is ahead of time. Just tune back any particular day and you'll see this structure playing out in real time. It is awesome. Remember, 2 levels of standard certification go into actually creating these levels. So what does this mean for us? If we get over this level of structural resistance, just remember this area through here, that touch, those touches, all of those touches, lots of touches, and here, these areas. We'll refer to that in future charts. How important is structure? Let's have a look at Solana to answer that question. And you can get these indicators from ctksmethod.org. Let's just throw this little baby on and see where the structure is playing out. Solana is currently 173.69. We can see it's in a positive CTKS gap, which has turned negative. This is pretty normal. Look at how price just moves in a wave. Amazing. We even have a rule on that. Price moves in a wave. Now, where does it move in a wave from? It moves in a wave from structural support up to structural resistance. If it can't get above structural resistance, it's going back to structural support. That's why it's very important to know where the structure is. And a little bit north of that 179 mark is where the structure is for Solana. Around that 170 is where the structural support is, and a little bit below 171.80. This is just terrific stuff, and as Tail said in his comment, Solana has been paying out with these structural gaps again and again and again. Well done, my friend. And well done to everybody who's reached out and shared their trades with me. It's just beautiful. I love to see you succeed. Now, what's on the cards for Solana? If we get this continuation of negative price momentum, that 170 is looking really good. Expect a bit of a reaction around that 171.80 mark. So here are where the buyers will start to pop in, and here they're going to weigh in very, very heavily. Don't be at all surprised if they don't even come down to this particular part, because there's so many buyers around that 170 level, and you can see it. At the moment, we're pretty range bound. We're stuck between that sort of 179 area and the 170 area. And if you would like to see above this, all the levels above that and the levels below that, you can pick up the Solana indicator from ctksmethod.org. There's a ton of free resources there too. Let's have a look at ADA, Cardano, and we'll get to Sui, I promise. It's coming up. When you look at price moving in a wave, it's always structurally based, but structure includes intercorrelation and interconnection. A fascinating concept, one that you should really learn as much as you can about. A lot of the past videos go into it in quite a bit of depth, so please make sure that you watch those. When we're looking at this kind of price behavior, we realistically need to see what structure is doing. If we don't know where the structure is, we just don't know what's cooking. And what we can see, there was a lot of structural resistance that got flipped to structural support. But because Bitcoin was waving up and down like it's been doing, remember what Total does, what Bitcoin does, gets intercorrelated and interconnected with every single project inside the crypto market. And we can see there's a lot of sellers. In terms of ADA, if ADA was stronger, it would be up to these levels, up to those levels. Remember the variation from Solana. This is why it's really valuable to look through the structural levels and cross-compare different projects. You're seeing which one is strong, which one is weak. Now the good thing is ADA is reaching that structural level of support around that 74.70 mark and a little bit lower at 73.90. So this should withstand any negative momentum much better than other projects who are stuck up here in the middle of a gap. There's so many ways that you can read structure. And once you can read structure on one chart, guess what? You can read structure on any chart. It's a skill, like riding a bike. It's not something you forget. Let's check out the structure on BNB. Now, why is BNB important? Because when BNB rallies like a wild thing, that's saying to people, centralized exchanges are getting really attractive now. And thank you for your comment, RGX, in yesterday's video. In other words, we can use BNB as a risk-on sentiment and an investor attractiveness indicator in terms of the crypto market. Now, when we look at BNB, we can see that we've got overhead structural resistance around that 696 level, and another one below it around that 694. That positive CTKS gap just saw price just explode upwards. Not bad. That's why it's good to know where these gaps are. And we've seen many gaps over the years. Tesla strategy, which used to be Michael's strategy or micro strategy, and now just strategy, Bitcoin strategy. What you'll notice with these gaps, price can explode very quickly. If it holds, it can explode through the next one. So they're very profitable to look at. Right now, we're seeing that BNB is coming into structural support around that 680. If it can't hold there, the next level is 673. But if things start to turn around, the major market indexes start to break through and we see a basing, 696 will open up. That's why you always have to think in terms of bull and bear cases each and every day. Let's have a look at Doge and then we'll get into SUI. Now, what do we see with Doge? It's just wobbling up and down. We remember that overhead total structural resistance. It's playing out on Doge as we would anticipate. And now what are we looking at here? Doge is currently 22,190. If it comes down to structural support, that starts to get action around this 21,780 mark and below. And overhead structural resistance playing out a little bit above that 22,600 mark and then around the 2300 or 23,000 mark. So one thing to just bear in mind, when you're looking at price, when it goes to many decimal places, you want to use exact precision, and these lines are very powerful. So we know that we're in a really volatile area. When you get into these gaps, it gets really volatile. Think about upside and downside momentum. Now, onto SUI. One of the powerful things to do is to read structure in between charts, and we can already tell that SUI is a really powerful project. Just have a look at this. Overhead total structural resistance was playing through this area and through these areas. If we do something like that, you can see those areas are higher and SUI is up here. SUI is strong. And I would like to thank everybody that reached out and said SUI would be really good to look at, including Cheryl, LMG, Al, Blee C, Tails, TSP, and J-Link, just to mention a few. Just awesome. Please let me know your top 3. And if you like other projects, please let me know those as well. Okay, let's have a look at SUI. So this is a community requested chart, so there is no indicator out. I just do it for you guys because I love you. Now, checking out the structure. What does this structure look like? Okay, well, first things first, SUI is trading at 371.37. We've got underneath structure around that 356 mark and down at the 335. What we can see is just slightly above the 376, just playing out at 377. There's overhead structural resistance there. That means the sellers are going to inhabit these areas, the buyers will inhabit these areas. What about a little bit further around that 386 mark? Now, if we just zoom out, and I'd like to show you this because this indicator is not available from the website, so let's have a look at all of this. What we can see is around that 398 mark or 399, we've got overhead structural resistance playing out there and a little bit further up at the 412. And we can see that the structure is reasonably light and quite spaced apart on SUI, and the top overhead structural resistance is starting to bunch together. Now the key is to just make your percentages. Don't forget that you don't have to make a standard percentage every day. You could make just an on average percent. But as always, it's what the market will give you. We cannot force the market to say, give us 2% per day, market. You know, I'm your boss, market. Yeah, kind of doesn't work that way, unfortunately. But if you use your skill and you figure out what your trading strategy is, you can do very, very well. Let's do some panning out for a little while and just look at SUI from the sense of what happened around that $4 mark. In the past, SUI came up, just bolted up, had so many sellers and said, oh brother, I need a break. And this is one of the problems because a lot of people just think that this must continue forever. It just continues until the sellers overpower the buyers. And that happens around these structural levels. That's why they're so important to understand. If you don't know where they are, you're just guessing because you probably think, it's going up like this. It's going to go up and up forever. Well, we wish it would, but most likely it's not going to do that. It's just price moving in a wave. Where does it move in a wave? Between structural support, structural resistance, structural support, structural resistance. You get the idea. So what are we seeing right now? Well, definitely SUI is interested in taking and regaining that $4 level. And if it does, fantastic stuff. That's the positive. What about the neutral case? Well, it could just ping pong around here. What about the negative case? It could be, Ken, don't think negative. SUI must just only ever go up, never go down, always go up. And if you think about it, that never happens, does it? You can look at price action. It's never just going in one direction. It's always waving around like a maniac. And you can take advantage of these waves. They are so profitable if you learn how to ride them, how to surf them effectively. And you don't need to make big percentages to make big percentages. So if we lose this level of structural support just a little bit below 360, if we miss that, we could get a negative momentum and a structural overshoot or an SO at that particular sort of 335 level and then come back into the $3. But the real support is at 310. It's not at $3, it's at 310. That's the more important one. And look at all of this structure down around the 262. That looks awesome. Don't forget, you profit where you buy. And if you're investing, you want to buy lower. You don't want to buy up here and here all the time. Just buy all of those peaks because that's where they call you in. You get the death of 1,000 cuts because emotionally, after this period of time, you say, I probably messed it up. I better sell. And then it just flips around and goes the other way. Please let me know in the comments, has this ever happened to you? Please let me know your 3 favorite charts, and it could be charts across everything. Crypto, Forex, commodities, stock market, everything, anything. If you've liked the video, please subscribe and don't forget to gently smash that like button. I hope this has helped, and I look forward to marking up more charts for you in future videos. Have a great day or night ahead, my friends, and Kate and I look forward to catching up with you again in the next video. Bye for now.